science-y things that aren't real.
Okay.
Here we go. Welcome to the Flipside, folks. I'm Sam.
I'm JT.
And this is our top 5 science fiction games of all time. Within the current context of our lives, right. This is the top 5 that we picked. But if you came over here from the Dice Tower after watching our bottom 5, our numbers 10 through 6, welcome to the Flipside. And what we would like you to do, if you would be so kind, is to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell icon, because then you'll be notified when we have more content coming out. So we talked about the weights of the other list. We already gave you our average for the entire list. My top 5 average is a 2.69. Ooh-wee. So it's considerably lighter than my average for the bottom 5, which is a 3.12. So you can kind of see that, or kind of understand that you're going to talk about some lighter games.
Yeah, see, I'm going to talk about some lighter games too.
Oh my goodness.
My average of this list is 3.57, which is way down from my last list, which was 3.67.
Way down. A whole tenth of a point.
Tenth of a point.
Wow.
So it does go down.
Yeah, of course.
I like lighter games more.
No, you don't. Big liar. Let's go ahead and get to it. This is our top 5 science fiction games. Let's get to it. All right, my number 5. It clocks in at a 2.73 for complexity, and it is made by a good friend of mine, designed rather, by a good friend of mine. His name is Roy Canaday. The game's name is Last Light. It is a 4X game. If you don't know what that is, go look it up, because I can never remember what the 4X's are. I can remember usually 3 of them. Exploitation, exploration. Okay, I can only remember 2.
Extermination?
Extermination, yes, exterminate. And I can never remember what the fourth one is.
Exterminate and evacuate. No, I don't think that's a V. I don't remember either.
Anyway, it is a 4X game. Twilight Imperium 4th edition was on the last list. That's also a 4X game. This also takes about a fraction. I was going to say a quarter, but that's not true. It takes a fraction of the time that it takes to play Twilight Imperium 4th edition, and that's one of the main draws for Last Light. Not only does it take an infinitely less amount of time to play than Twilight Imperium 4th edition, it's also a lot more smooth.
Yeah.
Twilight Imperium is kind of clunky. A lot of people like that clunkiness. It provides pauses. It provides stops when it should have some stops. You don't need those stops in Last Light. This one plays so smooth, and so it's just such a well-oiled machine. It's so fun to play, and it doesn't take that long. It's got some twists in it that some people don't like, though. Like, I was just talking to a guy at Dice Tower West. He said, I like Last Light, but I don't like it when the board moves, because I was planning on doing stuff, and now I can't do that anymore. Yeah. And now my troops are a lot closer to that guy, and he's going to attack me. So it does have that in it. It's one of the things that I really like about it, because the board, you look at it and you're like, there's no way I'm going to get from here to way over there. And then a couple turns later, oh, look, I'm like 2 spaces away.
Yep, and you're everywhere.
And it's because that board, all those 3 layers move, and I really like that. I like the theme behind it as well. You're trying to mine as much light until that star burns out, basically. I really enjoy this game a lot. It's a great science fiction game. It's a great 4X game. That's my number 5, Last Light.
It also sets up in a fraction of the time. It's got
a
really nice setup.
Everything.
Very smooth setup.
Everything
this is a great game. It also has a card mechanism that I love in games, where you're playing from your hand, and sooner or later you're going to have to play down a card to pull your cards back in. I love that mechanism.
Yep.
Because there's some agonizing times on when you do that and when you don't.
Right.
So, yeah, great game, beautiful production. And my favorite thing is the way the board spins, because you can't turtle up in this game. You can't hide in the corner. There are no corners.
You've got to go out.
It's a round universe.
Yep, you got to go out.
And you're going to see people. So, all right, my number 5 is touted as having bad artwork, but I like the artwork. I don't mind the artwork, at least at a minimum, but I don't mind the artwork whatsoever. But
I know what he's talking about.
yeah, this is Circadian's First Light from S.J. McDonald and Garfield Games.
I've never played the
Circadian's
game.
First Light is my favorite. I'll say it right now. It is my favorite dice placement game.
Okay, I thought you were about to say Garfield. I'm like,
I
liar!
love dice. It's pretty close. I love it. Is.
Really?
Yeah. Like, it was in my top 20 of all time. Like,
Well, it's not your favorite Garfield game,
no,
though.
but it's pretty close. I think it's second right now.
Okay.
But anyway, Circadian's First Light is an awesome game where you have dice as your workers. It's a worker placement game. But they're also a resource that you do. So as you're basically going to this planet that has different alien races on it. You're interacting with the planet. You're mining. You're gaining algae and water and, minerals and different things like that. You have gold cards, or not gold cards, you have like production cards that you're trying to build these different things, but you're in the end game victory points and stuff like that. But you have a personal player board where you can either place your dice workers secretly into spaceports that you're going to send them to fly to the town to the planet, or you can keep them back on your farms. And the trick is that the numbers on them matter. The order that you place them to fly out, they have to fly out in that order. So that's pretty agonizing because somebody might take the spot that you wanted this first dice to go to, and it just it makes all kinds of crazy things. The resources in this are very tight. And like I said, your dice, when you place them in the depository or go to meet the aliens, you lose them forever. So you got to continue to get more dice, recruit more people at the same time. There's just a really good balance in here. It's just a really, really nice worker placement game. So that's my number 5, Circadian's First Light.
Yeah, I've never played it. I think it sounds like I would probably enjoy it.
I really like it.
Yeah, but I just haven't ever got.
It's
past
one of
that
those
artwork.
games like Mel and I. We played on the cruise.
Yeah.
A couple people asked us to teach it or whatever else, and we had to. It's one of those games where if I haven't played it for a while, I put it on the table, and I spread it out, and then I'm like, oh, I like this game.
Yeah.
Like it just clicks, and I'm just like, oh yeah. And then after you take your first turn, you're like, oh, I really like this game. Like it's one of those ones that just gives me those feels.
Yep, that's cool. It's a comfort game.
For sure.
All right, my number 4 is what I would consider to be another classic. It sounds like they're coming, or it looks like they're coming out with another version of the game, and I don't really like the third edition, and I don't really like the look of it.
Oh,
but,
yeah, you're right.
The second edition is where it really kind of sings as far as gameplay, looks, everything is concerned, and that is Mission Red Planet. This is
Barely science fiction-y at all.
Oh, I'm telling you,
We might be science, but I don't know about the fiction part.
I don't remember the ability to land troops on Mars yet.
Right.
That is the fiction part
They're not
of
troops,
it.
they're astronauts.
I don't even think they're that really. There are some like just basic travelers in the game as well, and I don't know of any leisure cruises that land on Mars right now. So I'm pretty sure it qualifies. Now, it does have a retro look to it. All of the rocket ships have a very, 1950s, 1960s look to it, which is fine.
Almost that Bioshock type of look.
Yeah, it's almost like steampunk.
Or steampunk.
Like a steampunky Bioshock
So good.
kind of look. And it's really great. It's a beautiful game. The little astronaut meeples are really cool, plastic miniatures, rather, whatever you want to call them. It's really great. But basically, you have a hand of cards that are leveled, that are numbered 1 through 10, and you're going to be playing those secretly, flipping them over at the same time, and then you're going to be placing astronauts on ships, rocketing them up to Mars, and then landing them into a area control mechanism on Mars. And you're going to be getting different points for different things. You can actually put different kinds of event cards up on Mars that will have some of those regions score differently than they normally would, which is also a really cool twist to the game as well. It's just a lot of fun. And Phobos is there, a little moon of Mars, so that you can actually land things on Phobos, and then you can actually like paratroop them into wherever you want.
So good.
It's a really great game. I think the second edition is where it's probably going to sing the best as far as how it all looks and how it all works together. I haven't seen any of the changes that they might make or they may have made to the third edition. But based on the artwork, I'm not liking it so far. But we'll have to see.
Same. Second edition is great.
Yep, I really do enjoy it. My number 4 mission, Red Planet.
Excellent. A foreseeable future.
I don't know about that.
I'm not a crook. I don't know where that came from, but I did the quotation.
It is a quotation.
All right. My number 4 is not in space. I think this is the only one that's not in space. It's still, well, Tamashii could not be considered in space. Who knows? Burn Cycle could not be in space, too. That could just be our future. But anyway.
I have 2 that are not in space.
My number 4 is not in space, but it's definitely futuristic. And this is another Vladimir Suchy game from Delicious Games. Yep, see?
Wow. Do you have that set up to do that every time you say Vladimir Suchy?
It just pulp. This is Underwater Cities. Underwater Cities is one of the coolest Euro games that I have ever played. Your actions are based on cards that you have in your hand. And you're playing your cards down to basically colored spaces around the board, which are the worker placement spaces, or however you want to call them. And based on which card you play and which one of those are on, that's the actions you get to take. If you match the color of your card with the color of the space, then you get to take both actions, which is really nice. But in Underwater Cities, you are building just that. You are building domes underwater, biodomes underwater. You're building tunnels from domes to domes. You have your own little personal player mat, which is possibility of 9 domes in a 3x3 grid. And you can connect those in multiple ways. And it's one of those games where if I put this dome here, I get this bonus. If I can get domes all the way across to here, I'll get this bonus at the end of the, at the edge, or I'll get this scoring ability at the end of the game. The resources are plasteel and it's not kelp, biomatter, and I don't know what else.
Biomatter?
Food for your people.
It says Soylent Green? Vladimir.
I don't know why it's doing that. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.
But anyways, but you're getting these resources at the very beginning of the game. The resources are very slim, and you don't get resources until the production phase at the end of the round. And then, by the time you've got a couple of rounds in, you're like, oh, I got all this cool stuff. And then you're like, oh, spend, and it's all gone. It's just a very fun, very cool game. You can build little factories inside the different domes that give you extra food or extra science or whatever else. So it's just a really great game. Fantastic design. Yep. So that is my number 4. Underwater Cities, and if you want that game, go out and buy the expansion too, because it has dual layered boards. And I love them.
Yep, those are almost. I'm hoping very soon that becomes an industry standard.
Yeah, it almost is.
There's
it works so
many
great
games
with
now.
games like this because you have all these little domes and bubbles and tunnels and everything else. They stay on your board. You shake it, nothing happens. So.
All right, my number 3 is a game that, now one of the things that I didn't really talk about here is that I stayed away from IP games. So I stayed away from Star Wars, Star Trek. I thought that was low-hanging fruit, and I think that you could probably do,
Not very good games either.
That's not true. I was saying I could probably come very close to doing a top 10 of each. Or at least of one or the other. So I stayed away from those. I just went with generic sci-fi. This one and one other comes very close to infringing upon that self-imposed rule.
All right.
But it's still very generic, and it's done so on purpose so that they wouldn't have to pay for all of those licenses that they are definitely paying homage to. Let's put it that way. This one is called Clank in Space. It's also my favorite version of Clank to play. I enjoyed the original. I really enjoyed the legacy version of it. I've played, what was it, Catacombs with you, and I enjoyed that one as well. But I think it's because it's sci-fi that I really like this one the best. And I think it's because of all of those homages to all of these different IPs that make it really kind of funny. I mean, you have these things that on a card that's definitely a Wookiee, but it's not called a Wookiee. But it definitely looks like a Wookiee. You know, and it's that kind of stuff. You have laser swords as weapons, you know, that kind of thing. So it's that kind of thing. It's very tongue-in-cheek, but it's also my favorite version of the game to play. I liked the fact that you have those different gates or doorways that you had to get the keys to, and then you also had the transporters that you could go from one side of the board to another side of the board. I just thought that it was a better implementation of what they were trying to do in the original with a fantasy theme. I still thought it was basically the same game, of course, but I just felt like it was a better implementation.
Well, it adds modularity to the boards for one, which is really nice. For two, like you said, you have to unlock the data terminals before you can get down and get a treasure, so there's no rush to the bottom and rush back out. You actually have to do some work to get there and get back out, which is an excellent addition. And they have the robot from Buck Rogers, so
bitty.
That's
Way
right.
to go, Buck.
He's the best, absolutely the best. So
that's my number 3. Clocks in at a 2.58, so it's right there in the middle of the road. Clank in space.
Right on. All right. Well, my number 3 is a very new game. And it is a second addition to one of my favorite games. But my favorite game, but it was not in space, the first one. And this one is. And it's called Andromeda's Edge. From Cardboard Alchemy. Andromeda's Edge is space to the extreme. No, it's not. But it has bad guys to the extreme. And you have to fight them. So, But this is a beautiful game, first of all. Production is off the charts. The little ships for the bad guys, the little ships for your guys, like everything else. The buildings you build are awesome. But you're basically going from planet to planet to planet in a worker placement game where your workers are your ships, being that you start with transporters and then you get a fighter or fighters and you get a science vessel and you get a destroyer. And they all have different combat strengths.
The science vessel looks surprisingly like
something else.
The Enterprise.
Yes, but in this game, you're placing these workers out. You're going up tech trees, which are very sciencey at that. You can build buildings on the planets, which will give you points at the end of the game, and they will all be based on kind of your tech trees. The planets or the buildings you build are based on the type of planet you build it on. But when you build a building, you put it on top of your transporter, and now your transporter becomes that building. You have to kind of go around and collect these leaders that will fill the spots on those buildings. And so you're giving up a worker permanently to have this building. So it's just a really beautiful game. There are raiders and big hive ships and flying space snake-looking things and all kinds of crazy bad guys that you have to fight and deal with. As well as fighting.
You have space whales?
I don't think there's a space whale. I'm
Star
pretty
Wars
sure
has
there's
space
not a
whales.
space whale.
Star Wars has space whales.
Well, okay.
They can travel through hyperspace on their own.
Well, I think technically, doesn't Dune have space whales? I think they do.
They were,
They have things like that. There's some crazy things. But this is a really great game. The other cool thing about this game is you are building an engine out of your player board, and so every time you bring back your ships, you get to fire off all these cool things, get all these resources, send your guys back up to combat. Plus, there's a targeting system, and the tactic cards are fantastic. This is just a great game.
Great game all around. My number 2. Definitely has some science-y, not real stuff to it. But it happened in the past. And it happened here on Earth. So, still has some science-y, not real stuff to it, though.
Like building pyramids?
Like Stargates.
Okay.
Like Stargates. Because that's how you get off Atlantis. And this is Atlantis Rising, specifically the second edition by Elf Creek Games, because that one is the bomb diggity as far as the aesthetics are concerned.
Yep.
Very beautiful game, vintage trace artwork, super looking game. But it's a cooperative game where you are trying to get your peoples off of Atlantis as it sinks. So I don't understand why they called it Atlantis Rising. We talked about this. Why?
Yeah.
There must be some. I mean, they're rising to the occasion of saving their people
while their
sinking.
island is sinking.
Yes.
Yep.
They're rising to the occasion while their island is sinking. So Atlantis is rising, metaphorically speaking. Anyway, I liked the push your luck mechanism. You know, you can go as far out of the board is based kind of shaped around these different spokes of the island, and you can travel down as far as you want on these spokes. And the ones that are further away from the center of the island are much more rewarding, but they're more likely to start going underwater. And that's bad for your worker who might be there if it decides to go underwater.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of a push your luck mechanism there. It is, you know, I think you've talked about it before, how it's kind of formulaic.
Yep.
Where there's usually a best thing and it's rather obvious
that's
what you should be doing.
It's a neat game, but I do think it is.
Yeah. And it's cooperative. So I tend to give formulaic games that are also cooperative kind of a break, because they're kind of supposed to be, right? You're supposed to be able to figure out the puzzle as you put your heads together. But
true.
You're building all of these devices that are helping transport your people off of Atlantis. It's a really great game, really fun. It's been one of my favorite games for a while. But that is my number 2, Atlantis Rising.
All the way up at number 2. Z would be proud.
He would be. He would.
All right. All right, well, my number 2 is definitely not an IP game. Definitely not. Wink, wink. And this thing has aliens in it that might just eat your face.
Maybe.
And it has this crazy story where you wake up in some hibernation pods, and one of the pods has been busted into.
I could swear
and there's
I've
a
seen
dead
that somewhere
crewman
before.
there, and you don't know why that crewman is dead.
Does he have a hole in his chest?
He does. Maybe he has a
goodness.
hole in his chest. This is Nemesis. In Nemesis, you are on this ship, the Nemesis, and you're trying to fly back to Earth. And you're hopefully trying to fly back to Earth in one piece and bring all of your alien friends with you, so that they can populate the Earth as well. But everybody has their own objectives. Some people's objectives, this is a semi-cooperative game, so you get to pick a corporate objective or a personal objective at a certain point in time. Usually the corporate objectives are much more nefarious, I'll have to say.
Sure.
But my corporate objective might be, I have to kill Sam. Sam has to die before we get to Earth. That could be my objective, legitimately.
I don't like that objective.
But in this game, your guns and everything are smart. You don't get to shoot at anybody else. You can't attack anybody else. So you have to be creative if that's your kind of thing. You know, you lock them in the room. You throw a grenade in because there's an alien in there. Oops, sorry. Like, you know, those kind of things. But you are on the ship. You're trying to make sure the engines work, hopefully, that you're aimed towards Earth and not aimed towards Venus. And the whole time you're running for your dear lives away from aliens and slime and things like that.
10 ways to die.
Exactly. I really love Nemesis in all of its versions.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. And it is pretty much Aliens, the board game.
Done right.
Yes, correct. All right, my number 1 clocks in at a 3.48. It was also JT's number 2, Nemesis. A supremely designed game. Well done. Now, I've only played the cooperative version of it.
Yep.
There is a cooperative version for it, and it's basically the Nemesis Lite version, is from what I've understand.
It's actually
really
harder.
It's harder?
Yeah, it's
Oh, I
harder
didn't
because
realize
you
that.
have to do all of, for every person that plays, you have an objective.
Oh, everybody's objective has to be
So you
completed.
got to do them all. It actually,
Oh.
the cooperative version is quite difficult.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
It's
Well,
quite
then-
difficult because you have to do everything and you have to do it all together maybe. But if I only have to do one selfish objective, that's way more focused sometimes.
Sure.
But Now we
that's
really...
actually cool then. I was thinking that the semi-cooperative was harder.
No.
Okay. That's actually
the
cool.
cooperative is actually quite hard.
I feel much better at putting this at my number 1 then.
Yeah, because now you have to make sure the engines are working. You have to make sure you're going in the right direction. You have to make sure one of you is carrying an alien egg for some reason.
Well, corporate needs their stuff.
And you have to make sure the ship doesn't blow up or whatever.
Scientists have to have something to study.
Yeah, so the cooperative version is quite difficult because you have to do all of those goals.
That's cool. Well,
whatever goals you may draw.
I have not yet played semi-cooperative yet, so I really want to try that now.
Awesome.
Yes. Very cool. My number 1, his number 2, Nemesis.
All right, my number 1, you're flying in a ship in space. You have an engineering department and a recon department and a security department and a science department, and you're going to go down with these away teams down to planets.
I know the name of it.
What is it?
USS Enterprise.
No, it's ISS Vanguard.
Oh.
In ISS Vanguard, the Earth gets a signal, decides to make this giant ship called the Vanguard to follow this signal because that's what we do. We spend billions of dollars.
So they will boldly
because
go.
we heard something over there.
Where somebody has already
That's
gone
right.
before.
So let's go find out what it is. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're going to find out what it is. It's a very cool game because you're living out the life of this ship as you go from system to system, planet to planet. You have, like you said, you have a team that goes down to the planets and they're doing whatever needs to be on the planet. We're trying to figure out what's over there. We're trying to collect fuel for our ship. We're trying to do something on this planet. The very cool thing is you can go to the planet. You can only carry so much stuff in your shuttle. So you might actually go to the planet, get some stuff done, and have to retreat, and then go back down there again. You know, it's not like this is a one-time mission thing sometimes. Or you could go to a planet that's very volatile. It's going to explode in 7 turns, and if you're not gone, your crew is gone and dead in a heartbeat.
Back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board, and you are recruiting more people to your division, whatever that might be. If I'm the recon people, you know, I'm recruiting more people. They're leveling up. They all have a dice system where they have a group of dice that they use for their actions. And those are slowly going to exhaust over the mission, so you're going to have fewer and fewer dice.
And if your crew dies, the Klingons start reverse engineering the ISS Vanguard.
The Klingons?
Yeah, the Klingons.
I haven't met them yet, so no spoilers. I haven't met those guys yet. But my number 1, if you want to feel like you're in space, flying your ship and doing these things, my number 1 is ISS Vanguard.
All right.
Great game.
That's a good pick. I've heard a lot of people talking a lot of good things about it. So it's definitely one of those that super hits where
my favorite thing about it is it doesn't have any aliens on there that'll eat your face in your ship. Like, my ship is safe.
I'm telling you, the Klingons are pretty...
Well, I'm not sure about that.
They're pretty mean. All right, that is our top 5 science fiction games. If you've not done so already, we gave a few couple of spoilers, but you can go watch our bottom 5, numbers 10 through 6, over on the Dice Tower. There is a link in the description below to do that. So before you do that, however, give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, leave us a comment, and let us know what we missed, because there are
lots of beautiful science fiction games.
Load of games out there.
Yep.
What did we miss? What do you like better than what we've said here? Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.
Beam me up.